It's October 11th, 2022. We're doing our Tuesday night tube guitar amplifier webinar session. And the first item that we had today, we were going to look at is an amp that Carl had built. And Carl, I've got you unmuted. You want to talk about this just a little bit?
Yeah, it's a just a Fender Pro Junior that I got from my son, and I was just going to, upgrade the caps on it, and then I did that, and then I just was like, you know what, I want to do more. And Hoffman Amps makes a board for this. You can buy a board that he has pre-turreted and everything. And then I just decided to rip out that cheap Fender circuit board and put a hand-wired board in it. Yeah, this was the first shot I did.
You know, this is a very good layout. It's an excellent layout. And, you know, Doug does some really good layouts. I recognize this as a Hoffman board, right away. But if you look at it and you analyze it, he has got all the bases really covered because, on a layout, you want to have the input on one side and the output on the other side, which is what he's got. You want your power supply to be away from the input, which is what he's got. This is a power supply rail. And the thing about a Hoffman board is you don't need a schematic. You can look at it and you can see, here's your power supply rail. Here's your screen supply filter, preamp supply filter, main filter. I mean, everything is it's just like looking at a schematic. Here's your, did he supply the parts for this, or did you come up with these parts?
Well, both, because I went ahead and ordered the little kit he has for it, but I had some components that I put, I had some 1-watt resistor, for example, that I put in there instead of the metal film, and I put some carbon comps in different places. But typically he ships everything with just the metal, half-watt metal films.
Well, that's one of the things me and him disagree on, is those metal film resistors.
Yeah, I don't like them. They're too bright. So I use like the other ones, carbon metallic, and 1-watt ones if I had them.
Yeah. Well, these here.
Yeah, if you look at that right there, Gerald, that one.
Carbon film. These are
right.
Carbon film here.
I'm sorry, yeah, carbon film. Yeah.
Yep. Ken Fisher, he loved carbon film. He used carbon film for everything. And then this here is a carbon comp.
Right. I had a few carbon comps in the bags that I wanted. I was kind of running low on them, so that's what I had.
Well, that's cool, man. That's real cool. Yeah, this is a really nice layout, the way this thing is done. Really, it exemplifies what a good layout's supposed to be. Is the thing quiet?
Well, I was chasing a little bit of noise, but if on the grids, they were too long in this picture right here, so that I redid them. They were going under the board, so I took them back and put them over the board, and I cut about 6 to 8 inches off the total amount that was there.
That's smart.
Yeah, so I reduced the grid, and then also I was chasing it, and then that cap on the far right, I had replaced it because I was trying to upgrade the caps a little bit. The ones that come with it are like a Zycon, and so I put like a little Mallory in there, and I had that lead was a little bit too long. It wasn't touching, but it was kind of close to the chassis below. So I finally figured that out and then redid that, and it was good. And on this original photo, if you notice on that the phase inverter, the capacitor, that 0.1, I didn't have anything going to pin 7. So I went back and redid that. Of course, before I turned it on, it's like, oh crap. But yeah, it sounds pretty good, man. It didn't have any headroom before. Now you can take like the Gibson Midtown I have and just freaking rock this thing.
Yeah. So tell us the difference between the stock board and the custom board, other than the fact that it's louder now.
Well, of course, component, just quality. The Fender had everything, quarter watts where they could use them, and then just I hate Fender boards. Those ribbon cables and everything, it just drives you nuts every time I try to do anything to those. But the harmonic content is much better now. it's just, and I wish I could put bigger caps in there, but these dang things just don't have a lot of room in them.
Mm-hmm.
Some supersized caps, but I mean, huge difference where it was farting out, anything above like 3, and it was just farting out. And now I can turn it up to 5 or 6, and it just gets better. It just knocks out. It's a total difference.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Any comments on this before we move on? No.
Is there any hum?
Like I said, I was chasing a little bit in the beginning, and I went back and redid. Actually, this picture doesn't show it. I went back and redid my because on this particular one, your input jack is your ground, So
Yeah.
I took that back apart, and then I took my tool and just ground out around that input jack real good to make sure I had good contact. Put it back together, and it reduced the hum quite a bit.
Okay.
But one of the reasons I think is too, because this thing doesn't have any bypass caps on, on your V1, A or B. There's no bypass caps on it, so it's kind of wide open. But yeah, it's got a little bit of hum still when it's sitting. I don't like it. I've been working with it, trying to figure it out.
Well, when you don't have a bypass cap, it's going to compress. And what compression is it makes the softs louder and the loud softer. So any hum is going to be increased if you don't have a bypass cap.
Well, see, the reason I was asking, Chris, is I bought one of these boards and I put it in my Pro Junior. I still have the original board, and I built it, and it still hums. More so than the original Fender board. And of course, all the components were upgraded and the layout was, nice and clean. I put it aside because of the projects, but I intend to get back on it and one day figure it.
I did reduce it probably by, it was bad at first. I turned it on and I was like, holy crap, this thing's loud. So that's when I started looking for different problems and trying to, I redid the grids, made those shorter, and then I went back and did the jacks and the pots. Because what he has you doing is, of course, I don't usually do it, but where you solder the bus wire to the back of the pots, that's not my thing normally. I either put like a copper plate on there and solder it that way, or I'll just have a bus wire running, free in the middle. But anyways, so I had to go back and redo those. That quieted it down there. But it's still noisier than most of my amps. I mean, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I would like to take a look at your amp sometime, Brian, and figure out
me too.
the hum on that, because it could be done to where you have very little hum. I mean, you have, it's going to be something related to grounds. You don't want to have any ground loops in there. But like that Tres Equis amp that I'm making now, we can turn that sucker. That's a 35 watt amp, and we can turn that sucker up to 7. And you stand in front of it, you can't even tell it's on.
That's the way it should. It really is. Yeah.
We have the grounds right. The grounds, we only have the chassis grounded in one spot, and we have all the grounds correct. Of course, I'm using that Ulrich's reverb board, which is perfect. I mean, the grounds on it are perfect, and it's just quiet as can be. And I think this could be as quiet as can be also. I think it's just a matter of checking out the way you've got stuff grounded here.
If you look at that ground next to the output jack, that's where pretty much everything goes except for the preamp. The preamp's grounded at the jack, and then everything else is grounded. I've got that right there. And I took that and I put my own screw in there, and I totally just like took the my Dremel tool and just got a really good surface there. Did a double nut on it, and just tried to brought everything up as good as I could. Do you like to use a separate ground off the input jack? Instead of just relying on the jack to ground it?
No, No, because
No.
once you bolt that jack down, and
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're using a star washer, you're going to have a
Yeah.
connection there.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
I mean, it's going to be a
That's
good mechanical connection. I don't think you need to do anything different there. But yeah, anyway, very good. Anybody got any comments on this before we move on? We had another thing that you had sent in, Carl. We might as well go ahead and do that next because
okay. Yeah.
you'd purchased this. Talk about it.
Yeah. I found this guy online, man. I'm telling you what, well, I'm sitting here, haven't built an amp with this one yet, but I got this transformer in, this PT 330M, as he calls it. And this thing's freaking heavy, man. It's got some iron on it. It was, I had bought it originally. I was going to do a single-ended, like a little, 5F2 champ and put a bigger, like a 5881 or 6L6 or something. I hadn't decided yet. But then I was impressed with the iron on these things and then how heavy and the price of it. I basically bought the power transformer, the output, and he sent me a choke with it, which I normally wouldn't put a choke on a single-ended amp anyways. But all that for around 140 bucks. I thought, well, it's cheap enough. I'll give it a shot. And then I saw this layout on this. And I was just wondering, I think, I got some ideas on the primary where he's got, the number 2 and number 3. You could use that basically, maybe if you were using a solid state versus a rectifier. But then I looked at the heaters and, with the 2 amp versus the 3.5 that he has on the heater there. Just wondering, any ideas on that where the options are down there? What would that mean?
You talking about where the heater is 0, 5, and 6.3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, one says 2 amp heater, and the other one says 3.5 amp heater.
3.5 amps for the heater.
That's what it says in the middle circuit there. I was wondering what he meant by that. It's like, it looks like to me that would just be for your
that's a 6.3 heater circuit. That white yellow.
Mm-hmm.
3.5 amp heater circuit. And
So, yeah.
The only thing I see that's a big issue is the B plus winding is only 140 milliamps. That's not going to get you much. I mean, maybe a champ type, you could do a champ amp, a little single-ended, something.
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons that he had recommended this, I guess. So that tells me where I need to stay on that.
Yeah. And then the reason 11, 12, and 13 on there, that's because he doesn't know what kind of rectifier tube. Are you going to use a 5-volt rectifier or a 6-volt? If you use a 5-volt, use a 5-volt tap. If you use a 6-volt, use a 6-volt.
The 6-volt would be like an easy 81 or something like that, or whatever. I got you. And the 5-watt 3 or whatever would be for the yellow number 12. And,
yeah, depending on what kind you want to wire it with.
Mm-hmm.
And then your 3.3 each side of the center tap, that's going to be
it's your heater.
Yeah, that's your heater. And I don't know why they got that center tap, because it's not a push-pull amp. And you center tap them on a push-pull amp so the phase canceled hum. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I saw the top there because he's got a 55-volt bias on top too.
Maybe you could put some bias on it.
Yeah, so you wouldn't need that for a single-ended amp, but.
Well, no, you can put bias on your filament to drop the. Yeah, but I wouldn't put. See, when you rectify that 55 volts, you're going to end up with about 80 volts. You don't want to put that on that center tap. Put maybe 30 volts, 35 volts, maybe 40. But I wouldn't put more than 40 volts on that number 9. 40 volts positive, and that'll keep that hum down to a minimum. Yep. And what were you saying about using the primaries for different things?
Well, you got the 115 and the 120.
Well, now, what are you going to plug in 115 into a 120 volt house current and get, an extra 5% voltage on this?
Not really a lot of difference, is there now?
Huh?
Yeah. Not really a lot of difference in those two. That's right. It's only 5 volts.
Well, it's only 5 volts on the primary, but when you step it up, you're going to that 330, you're going to get an extra 5%, which is another 15 volts or so, 15, 20 volts. It's going to
I guess my question, I guess
350.
you would use that.
And then by the time you rectify that 350, you're going to be up to over 400 volts, 420 maybe. I don't know. It depends on what kind of rectifier tube you use.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but anyway, so that's what you can do with that. Anything
Cool deal.
else on this?
That's it, man.
Anybody got comments to add on his transformer?
Yeah, I'll let you know how they work out. I mean, I can give you the information on where to buy it. It's basically called musicalpowersupplies.com.
Yep.
And he sells everything on eBay. But great guy, knows what he's talking about when you get to down, emailing him and talking to him. So
Yeah, well, he's got some good ideas doing that multiple voltage for the rectifier because, depending on what a guy wants to use, he could use it for a 5 volt or a 6 volt. Okay,
yeah.
Brian is next, and Brian has been working on some Kendrick amps. He had a gig rig here. You want to talk about that, Brian? Is that the right picture? Oh, wait. Are you muted? You're self-muted. There you go.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, this is a gig rig, which I think is the predecessor to the K-Spot. And this fella's owned this for a while. Blues player down in near Macon. Any rate, he says it's got some problem with it. At any rate, but before I I've had this once before. It was in last year sometime, and I upgraded caps and tubes. And while I was at it, I put this bias board up there, which is got the 1 ohm resistors off each power tube. So you got 2 test points, one for the right tube, one for the left tube. And as you can see, my fluke meter is measuring 34 millivolts, and my bias king bias tester is measuring at the same time 34.9. So pretty close, very close. And it works just fine. I mounted it there. Now, when you put the back cover on, it covers it up, and that's fine. But should he want to, and this fellow works for the Georgia Power Company, so he's a lineman, and he knows enough about electronics and whatnot, but he knows more about the blues guitar. But I put this on there for him so he could change tubes and adjust the bias, and I even pointed a little pointer there to the bias pot. And Gerald, if you want to zoom in, I want people to see that bias pot there, because we were talking about this last week, how you had mentioned you use those L style, there you go, Sarmet pots, and you sandwiched it between your 2 caps, and you've got it glued together well.
Yeah,
And
I use axial caps, but I mount them
yeah,
as if they're a radial cap, where I put the the minus through the eyelet and then take the lead and bend it over and go to another eyelet. But so they're mounted as if they're the radials, but they're really axial.
yeah,
And then I've spaced it just right to where that pot can go in between. And then I put a little bit of E6000 and glue it
yeah,
all in. So that way the whole thing is like one piece. And that keeps that pot from moving, because the caps are
right,
supporting it,
yeah, yeah. So I wanted to point that out because we talked about that last week, how to make a axial cap stand up like a radial. So that was done last year sometime. But so this guy swears he is really rough on his equipment. He's always driving everything to the extreme. And so this amp came back in my shop, and if we can, let's go back to the regular size picture. Zoom back out. if we can. There you go.
There you go.
And you've got you see behind the fluke, you got the little reverb unit.
Module.
Yeah, the module there. And I think, Gerald, it was on the email I sent you today where I said the gig rig is fixed.
Yeah.
Probably a separate email.
Okay, let's see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
I don't know.
That's one picture.
That same thing, yeah.
And then let's see. It's the same as that other
Yeah.
picture. This right here.
There you go. There's the board inside.
Guts.
And if you look, you see the 3 holes in a triangle on the left side of the board.
Yeah,
That's where the foot switch. Yeah. And your advice today on how to, get that out was to desolder the brown and the orange wire, which connected the ground, and then it would kind of fall out. And it did. It did. So the next picture will show.
Okay.
Yeah, well, not that picture, but what I did here, and I want you to notice where this piece of wire is soldered right in the middle there. There's a plate. Yeah, right there. I soldered that wire, that bus wire, and I coiled it around a little bit, and I bent it because right there where your pointer is supposed to be a little tip that comes up and connects into the previous picture of the board. But that little tip had either broke off or whatever. So I fashioned this connection as I did here to where your pointer is right there. That's all one path there. But now I have a solid wire coming up that's going to come up just like that ground tip is next to my index finger. And any rate, so you got your ground and you got your plus off the jack.
This is the plus. This is the plus over here.
No, that's
that's ground.
No, that's ground. That's right.
Yeah. And this other one is the plus.
This is.
But that little tip had broken off. And I noticed when I hit a chord or something, well, not even hitting anything, I could hit that reverb module with a plastic handle, and it would make all kind of noise. And so I said, it's got to be something in there. It turned out to be that. I fixed it, all back together, tapped on that unit, no more noise.
Cool. Now I want to point out something. You see on this jack, see this leading edge right here where my pointer is?
Yeah.
There's like a little plastic cover there, and you can pop that off and access the inside of that.
Okay.
I don't know if you noticed that or not, but
I didn't, no. But I got it all back together. I think the other pictures will show the progress.
This is very ingenious. This looks like a Frank Pate fix.
Thank you.
That's right.
I'm gonna tell you why I did a 3-inch loop of wire there, is because I wanted to make sure that when this little piece of wire stuck up through the board and I put it all together and soldered it, that I wouldn't get it so hot that it would unsolder from the main connection right above it.
Yeah.
So I had a little coil of wire there to absorb some heat.
I thought you might have put some E6000 on it or something just to, toughen it up a little bit.
Well, that's all I did was I got a good solder connection on that little plate that was visible right in the middle, pulled the wire around, and then bent it to stick up just enough and got it back in place. And you were right. I mean, you're not getting that board out of that unit without decoupling that ground post. any rate,
Yeah, that's right. And there was another picture that you wanted me to show.
there's a couple other pictures that'll help
Is that,
explain.
is that Frank?
That's
No,
Brian.
Brian.
Oh, that looks like that looks like one of the switchcraft switches. It's the jack.
Oh, really?
If you have trouble getting those, Mauser carries them.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's where I got them, or that's where I got
Yeah.
those. Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's
it's a
just
switchcraft product.
Yep.
CE has those too.
No, they don't have those.
They don't?
Nope, those are the 112s. It took me half a day to figure out where to go to get them. But like Gerald was saying, that little top plate comes off. I tried to like polish the contacts in there. Wasn't worth the effort. They're fairly inexpensive. I just tossed the jacks and just got new ones.
Well, I started to replace this jack with, some other just normal switchcraft, but
Yeah.
I wanted to keep it stock, if you will, and I found a workaround. So
Yeah.
it's right here. If you look at the between these two pots, you see the empty hole, and then right at 7 o'clock below it, you see the solder connection. So I was looking at that solder connection, and I looked at the top side, and the top side had a brown wire going to it. And yet, as this thing was removed, I said, why is that wire there? It's not going to anything. Then I realized that, yeah, it goes, move that arrow over to the left just a hair, right there. That's where it goes. But it wasn't connecting. So that's where I came up with
Might
a
have
little
broken
cord.
off or something.
It broken off, and it was making a racket. So
Well, I'll tell
it's
you what, I'm
fixing.
gonna quit using those jacks, man. This son of a gun only lasted 25 years.
Yeah.
Purple.
That's pitiful.
Yeah.
But everything else on this board is, boy, I got to give it to you, Gerald. That is a hell of a design.
Well,
Hell of a design. Yeah.
I
Just not,
spent 2 years on that, believe it or not. Just
well,
trial and
yeah,
error, trying different stuff.
it's nice.
Thank you.
Then there was, try the last one.
Yeah, here's a picture of the.
Yeah, that's where I soldered to get that positive of the tip,
Yeah.
and then coiled it up. It held, it's holding well, and it's working. So all done.
Cool, man.
But after getting all this fixed, I have discovered that we may have a blown speaker. And knowing how this guy plays, it doesn't surprise me. If you hit a D note, and it doesn't matter what octave, if you hit a D open string, or a D on the 5th fret of the 5th string, or the
Yeah,
12th,
any day.
except the high D, that speaker will buzz like a chainsaw. It just goes berserko. Any other note? No.
Probably a bad speaker, and those are high dollar speakers too. That we use those Fane Alnico $350 speakers in those amps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a high dollar speaker there, brother.
Yeah. Well, I substituted another 12-inch speaker just to test it, to eliminate it. And yes, it's a speaker. The speaker is shut. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, those are 100-watt speakers, but who knows? I mean, the guy might have been playing through a Les Paul with a tube screamer, everything dimed, and playing for several hours or something, and he ended up overheating that voice coil somehow.
This guy, when he was in his 20s, would spend a 3-day weekend up in Chicago playing with Buddy Guy.
Oh wow.
He's got some chops.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
I'll bet.
So.
Well, cool deal, man. Cool deal. Okay. Any comments on this so far? Anything? No? Okay. We're going to move on. We got another one here. Chris Phillips. Here you go, Chris. Where are you? Raise your hand so I can find you. There you go. Okay. Yeah, you're unmuted. I just put your hand down. All right. You want to talk about this?
Yep, I finally got that. I finally got the Solo 100 acting the way I wanted it to. So that's it. But
Some of the people may not know what you're talking about. This is the amp that Ulrich designed, and tell us about what it wasn't doing, and tell us what it is doing now that it wasn't doing before, and what did you do to fix it?
so if I hit it hard, if I played any hard chord, it would distort, and it would be that transistor distortion that sounds like, just nasty, just terrible sound.
Could you make that sound again
And
for Frank?
I was trying to keep my mouth shut on that one.
yes, I was waiting for it. but Gerald obliged me. So and so I tried different speakers, and so what you see under there is the you see that silver dome of the JBL speaker sticking out there. So that's an E120, 105 dB speaker. Sensitivity to try and get it so I can play it lower without it. It had no headroom, like none, the way it was set up. And it turns out that it was the power supply. So that power supply was like a 4-point-something amp power supply, and I must have been driving it way harder than that. So what I did was, if you flip over to some of the other pictures, you'll see the work I did on it.
Okay.
I replaced that LRS 150.
Oh wow, boy, isn't that a beautiful speaker? Wow.
Yep, that's the JBL, and that thing is nice. Everybody says it's harsh. It's not harsh. Just turn the presence down just a little bit. So there's the new power supply. So there's the LRS 350. So that's a 300
And
watt.
where did you get this at? At Mauser?
I bought that off of Amazon.
Oh, it was on Amazon.
Yeah. So that top card is the step up 360 volt board. And I just bolted it to the top of this power supply, but the power supply is underneath it. So this is the main 36 volt power supply.
Now, is that the same
And
step-up board that Ulrich designed, or is that something that comes with the power supply?
this is the same step up board that Ulrich designed.
Okay. So you got the step-up board, and it's on top of the LRS 350.
That's right. And so this replaces the 150. So I've got 200 more watts to deal with, and 9.7 amps of
Wow.
power.
Boy, I bet that thing has headroom for days now, huh?
It is acting perfect. It is absolutely perfect. Exactly what I want. I must have sent you two of the same pictures.
I'm gonna have to get one of those for me.
There's the old one. Okay.
Yeah, I've got the old version, and I want to get that. How much did you pay for that?
$38. That's the last picture.
Shoot, cheap enough, huh?
I know. Why not, right?
Yeah. Cheap
So
enough.
here's the thing. I tested it with my 16 ohm speaker, and it sounds awesome. I tested it with I've got a half stack 4x12 8 ohm, and perfect. And then I tested it in my basement 4 ohm 410, and this thing will stand up next to a twin, no problem.
Wow.
I think it would embarrass a twin.
Wow. Well, you definitely got the
So-
power supply for it. I've always
So-
said that a guitar amp is nothing more than a power supply hooked up to a speaker, and you're using the tubes to modulate the power supply. And so, if you want a better amp, you need a better power supply. So that's pretty smart, putting that big ass power supply in there. Charlie's got his hand up. Go ahead, Charlie. Talk to me.
Yeah, is this the same size as the old power supply?
No, this is bigger. But the beauty is I didn't put it in that chassis that we got. So I put it in the Hammond chassis. So it didn't matter.
I wonder if
plenty
it
of
would
room.
fit. I wonder if it would fit in that chassis, though.
It's a good 2 inches longer.
Oh, it's 2 inches longer. Well, we've cut a 2-inch strip out of the back of the chassis. Let that sucker get out the back.
I was thinking,
What's this thing sticking out this hole here? Oh, I didn't have room for it in the chassis.
Yeah.
Now I take it Ulrich isn't here today.
Ulrich was on earlier, and he's off now. And I think his band rehearses on Tuesday night. So when he comes home from work, he gets online and then he dashes to go for his band rehearsal.
Well, I will try and relate what he told me about the power supply. He said that actually he realized that the power supply he initially had in the amp limited it to about 60 watts, and it couldn't really get up to 100. But he said, as has just been stated here, that a larger power supply wouldn't fit the chassis. That's why I asked my question.
Ah,
I, however, love my Solo 100, but I never
Well,
try and dime it. So
I don't try and dime it. I keep the volume really, really high, and I like a real responsive dynamic amp. So I like a lot of headroom. That way I can have my guitar low, and if I hit the strings harder, it's louder in the amp, and there's your dynamics, right?
right.
So but the amp has to respond to my playing. What was happening is it couldn't keep up with me, and so that's why the power supply had to change. And now, like I said, I'll put this up against the Twin any day. I mean, it blows my Mesa Boogie off the planet.
Wow. So, and you got that bigger chassis. What about you, Charlie? Do you have the original chassis?
I have the chassis that you built that didn't quite fit right, so I built a little spacer for the back of it and fit it in that way. I had to elongate all the screw holes to get them to fit, but I eventually got it to work. And I've just managed to squeeze into that chassis both the reverb pan and one of Ulrich's tremolo cards. And it's
Oh,
all inside that one original chassis. So I'm so proud of how I packed everything in there. I'm not willing to change it right away.
well, that tremolo, is that the same tremolo that he used for the Bassman and those other tube amps?
I don't remember. It's just one that's got a choice between amplitude and harmonic modulation.
Oh,
I don't think
that's a different one.
that's a different one. Yeah.
I haven't heard that one yet. That's pretty cool. It does the harmonic tremolo.
Yeah, like the old brown face
Oh
Fenders,
man, how cool is that?
brown Tolex Fenders. Yeah.
Does he have a kit version of that?
It's on a little board.
I'm gonna have
You
to
can
ask him.
ask Ulrich.
Yeah, I might
Yeah,
want
he
to.
does.
Might want to make one of those. Does it do a lot of thumping like the original brown ones did?
Not that I've heard.
Ulrich probably got
I
that.
mean, let me put it this way: when you say thumping, I don't know what you're talking about. So,
Okay, so it's
but then
Helicopter.
I honestly, I've never played one of the brown Tolex
it's
tremolos
obnoxious.
anyway.
The
So,
thumping is obnoxious. It's like bump, 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 bump. You know, it's just obnoxious.
How did that go again?
knowing Ulrich, yeah.
Bump, 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 bump. I just increased the speed.
There you go. You changed your capacitance on the fly.
That's right.
Gerald's a thumper.
All right. Well, I want to see some pictures of your build, Charlie. Why don't you send me something for next week so we can see how you put that tremolo card in there and all that other stuff, your reverb. Well, the reverb card would have been stock, but you got the tremolo in there, so that's cool too. Can you send me something next week, brother? You're self-muted.
If I can, I'll send you something now.
Oh, okay, that'll work.
If I can find it.
Okay, that'll work. I'd like to see it. Very cool.
And another reason I chose this chassis was because I can put a full-size reverb tank in the top of it.
Oh yeah, use a full-size tank.
Yeah.
But you know what? I've been using those small tanks for the my Trust Equis amp. Man, those things sound really good. I mean, I can't hardly tell the difference. To tell you the truth,
It's like the little, are they the mod brand or what?
Hell, I don't know. It's at probably the Mod brand. It's a little the short pan. But I think
Yeah, I've got.
the springs might even be the same length, and they're just wound differently. You know.
They are. They're suspended. They are the same length. It's like a folded spring,
Yeah.
basically.
Hmm.
Hey Gerald, quick question on that transformer we're looking at earlier. You think I could build something like 2 push pull on that?
Build a what?
84. Would it be have enough juice to do that? It's got a. You remember it had like 100. Well, it says 140. I think on the sticker on the transformer it has 150 milliamps. But instead of doing a single-ended build, could I do a 2L84 push pull?
Yeah, I don't know, man. You know, that's 140 is pretty low.
Yeah.
You could probably do it. You could, I mean, you could try it and see how you like it. The thing is you want
Right.
to have more power than you need because
Right.
here's what happens. Okay, how do they determine how much current the B plus can take? Well, they determine that by how thick the wire is. You know, if you want to be able to take a lot of current, you got to have a big wire. It's like if you're going to move a lot of gallons, you got to have a big hose. Same thing.
Okay.
Okay. So if they make the wire small, the current can't get through very well, and there's a lot of resistance in that wire. So let's just say that you had 400 volts on the plate of your tube. Okay. And you come along and you hit a cowboy E chord and you bang it windmill style, like who's the guy with the Who?
Pete Townsend.
Yeah, Pete
Yeah.
Townsend. Yeah, you bang a cowboy E chord. All of a sudden, all that current goes to that transformer, and when it sees that resistance, it makes a huge voltage drop. And now, instead of you having 400 volts on the plates of your tubes, you got 275 volts. And it feels like the harder you push, the worse the amp performs. It's not going to feel right. You want to have more power than what's needed so that the wire will be wound, you know, bigger wire. And when you jam those hard chords and you're playing power chords or you're doing something where you're trying to make an accent or make a statement, the plate voltage doesn't go away on you.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I'll stick to a single-ended amp then. I'll.
Matter of fact, you know what you could do just as an experiment?
Mhm.
Take a you could take a voltmeter and put it on the plate of a tube and clip it with an alligator clip and turn the amp up and then start banging on a cowboy E chord and see what happens to your plate voltage.
Okay.
And the more it drops, that drop, by the way, it's an ER drop, but it's called your copper loss because you're losing because of the resistance of the copper. You know, so anyway, you can try that for an experiment. And another experiment you can do is you can take an amp with no tubes in it, except maybe a rectifier tube if it's got a rectifier, and you see what the plate voltage is with no tubes in it. And then you put the tubes in and you see what the difference is. And if you've got this huge disparity, like, you know, 80, 90 volts, 100 volts, something like that, your B plus winding is not handling the current, you know, because it's not supposed to drop like that. Chris, you got your hand up. Go ahead and talk.
I just wanted to say, would the building the remember the amp you had, the I think it was the other solo you had built where there was two 12BH7s in there, would that power section fit within 140 milliamps?
Yes, it would. It definitely would.
That might be an option.
Yeah, that would be a good, if you wanted. And matter of fact, when I designed that amp, I was trying to design an amp that could be played in a studio environment and it wouldn't bleed over on everybody, but yet it would still be a push pull amp because a push pull amp sounds different than a single ended amp.
Okay.
You know, push pull amp, you can overdrive it, and the top of the wave and the bottom of the wave compress evenly, and it gives you that real violin-y, cello type tone that people just love for lead. But a single-ended amp won't do that. It's gonna compress just the top of the waveform. So and it'll cut off the bottom. It'll cut off one and compress the other. So if you overdrive it, it's going to sound buzzy. So I wanted to have a push-pull amp that was low wattage enough that you could play it in a studio environment without bleeding on everybody. So that's why I went with those 12 BH7 tubes, which are basically a big 12AX7. 12AX7 will do about a half a watt. 12AU7, I don't know, 3 or 4 watts, something like that, 2.5, 2 watts, 3 watts. But that 12BH7 will do 3.5 watts per plate, and there's 2 plates inside of one tube. So you can take one tube, run it push pull, get 7 watts, and 7 watts.
That's a good idea.
That 140 watt, 140 milliamp transformer will be just fine. For 212 BH7, because those things what do they draw? I mean, they just don't draw that much current. A few milliamps is all. So anyway,
I think
Yeah, I've got
Charlie
a schematic for a micro bassman with.
you got a schematic for
Go ahead.
micro bassman? Hello?
For a micro bass off the Rob Robin. Yeah, I might try that. That's a good idea. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? I've got something else.
Gerald,
Yeah.
I was just going to say I sent you some pictures
Okay.
of the Solo 100. It should be sitting there.
Well,
I should say these you didn't get it yet.
No, I didn't get it yet. But anyway, let's see here. No, that one there, that's what is that? That's that same one we were looking at earlier, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
That's that Hoffman Pro. Okay, this is Hoffman has some really nice graphics too. Well, look at that.
So,
The main ground lug. Yep, he's got it all figured out here. Yeah, this looks good.
and down below, he showed you how he wires up everything, and then there's a schematic as well.
Okay, well, let's see what else we got here. Brian. This came in from Brian. It said prior to final wiring. What is this, Brian?
This is the Pro Junior that I did with the same kind of board.
Oh, dude, you got that big old freaking 40 in there, man. Wow.
At any rate, this, the wiring wasn't finished. I just took a snapshot of, what I'd put together, and it's all wired up now. And it has a bit of a hum, but
is your cathode biased?
What's that?
The cathode biased? Is that what the big 10 watt
Yeah,
is there?
fixed bias. It looks like fixed bias here. What's that? That's a fixed bias supply.
Yeah.
You're right there. Okay, never mind. That's a huge 10 watt.
Yeah.
Well, what's that for? Is that a screen instead of a choke?
I don't have the schematic in front of me. I don't remember.
You did on that.
It may be something in parallel. That 220
It looks like it's in parallel with this 91 ohm, which
would be
probably about 50 ohms.
I don't remember.
But you might have needed the wattage, and that's what might be why you did that.
As you see, these pots are mounted straight to the chassis. And to tell you the truth, I haven't looked at this amp in a while. It may have a copper plate behind it now. I'm sure it does. This was just a preliminary. So That's what I did with my Pro Junior.
Wow, you got this big caps on. That's impressive.
Using up what I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't have Charlie's picture yet. I'm sure it's coming. But anyway, let's see. Sending, receiving, processing. Okay. There we go. There it is. Wow. And is this the tremolo board over here?
Yeah, this isn't pretty because I haven't built the cabinet yet. I was just seeing if I could stick everything in there.
Wow.
So I managed to get within that chassis both a tremolo board and the reverb pan. I can even get the tubes out without removing the reverb pan. So it's going to be a nice compact little unit. I'm in the middle of building the cabinet right now. The faceplate at the moment is just a piece of paper, which you can see peeling off. So, but I have a nice faceplate that's been made. I just haven't put it on yet.
Wow, cool. That looks great.
And for heat
It's
loss,
gonna
it's
be nice.
got the top is going to fit flush to what we're seeing. So the whole thing's going to be only about 5 inches high. And you can see in the back, I've drilled six vent holes. There'll be 3 more that come on the bottom sides of the cabinet to let air in at the bottom. So it'll go up, go across the airflow will go by natural convection across the board and then out through the back. So
Cool.
it'll allow me to make the thing very small. I'll send a picture when it's all done.
Yeah, if you decide to put that bigger power supply in it, if it's only 2 inches deeper, you could just cut the chassis right here and just let that sucker hang out.
If it was 1 inch deeper, I could probably jam it in there. That is kind of sad that it doesn't that it doesn't quite fit. But hey, I actually love this amp. It sounds great. I've been playing it pretty much all by itself for the last 2 months or so.
Everybody that's made one said that about this, that they love the amp. Anderson, David Anderson. Oh man, he's wild about it. And who else did I talk to? Oh, there's a couple people that I talked to that, they loved it. So cool. So you're not having a headroom problem with yours like Chris had with his?
It's not bothering me.
Uh-huh.
I think I know what he's talking about because it does seem to break up at lower volumes than I would like. I play it actually through an attenuator for the most part.
So it really wouldn't matter.
Well, yeah, so I can actually turn it up quite a lot. But I get a really, really great strat tone out of this.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for sending this in. I've got some other stuff in the queue, but the guy that sent it in isn't on tonight anyway, and it's 8 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and fold the tent for tonight, unless somebody's got anything. If anybody's got something they want to add or say, raise your
Actually,
hand.
Gerald, I just have a question for the group here. I've got this little pedal thing that I bought, and it uses a USB-C power clip that keeps breaking off. I've sent it back once, and the problem is this thing is just surface soldered onto a board. It's a surface mount clip. And I'm just sitting there thinking, rather than send this damn thing back again, I'll just try and just resolder the clip back on myself. But I've never done any surface mount soldering. Does anyone have any advice for me? I was thinking of using a heat gun, which
Well, that's how you have to do it on surface mount stuff. I'm not that familiar with it, but I know that they make products they make like this liquid, that you basically put on the connections, you set it on there, then you heat it up and it just kind of flows where it's supposed to, but there's a lot
Okay,
of,
well,
there's a
all
lot
I
of
see,
there's a lot of YouTube stuff around, for you to look at.
they just seem to say use a lot of flux. I don't see anything about special solder or anything. But
Well, it's kind of a liquid. It's kind of a paste, basically, that you
Yeah,
use.
it's a conductive paste is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
that
well,
that
if you're gonna,
replaces the solder.
Yes.
it is the solder.
It is it is the solder, but it's a low temperature solder, lower
So
temperature than normal solder.
if you use a heat gun, just make sure you block the rest of the components. Otherwise, you'll desolder everything else on the board.
Oh,
Blow it.
I
that's
was
a good tip. That's a real good tip.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I
blow
was
it all.
thinking of just putting a piece of aluminum foil with a little hole cut in it for the part I want to do. And that'll keep the heat off other things. But
Yeah,
They make the little desoldering pens for surface mount stuff. It's just like a little. It looks like a fat pencil or a pen, and then it puts out heat like a hair dryer.
okay, it's a specialized heat gun then.
Yeah, yep, just for that specific purpose. And just like was said, that there's lots of videos on how to repair these types of boards, and you do have to. You pull it all off, you clean off the pads, and then you put a little of that paste on there. You set the component down, and you just use that little heat gun. And once you see it done, it'll make complete sense.
Yeah, it just kind of flows where it's supposed to go.
Okay.
Anyway.
cool beans. All right.
Just call that surface mount solder or something. See
Yeah.
what it says. Yeah.
There you
Okay.
go.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for participating, and thanks to everybody that sent stuff in. Thank y'all for sending stuff in. Send me some more stuff next week. God bless everybody, and y'all have a great week. See y'all same time, same station. Ciao, ciao, baby.